channel for the wide nation of sports by Hunter Tickle. Hit that subscribe button. Hello, ladies and gents. This is Hunter Tickle. I'm your host. We have the podcast back up and rolling as Wide Nations of Sports podcast. We have episode 017 on tap for you here today. I'll break down what we got here in just a second. Before I do that, just a little update here on the pod. This is something that I'm going to be running once a month likely, or every other week. So about 1 or 2 episodes coming your way every month. And a bit of a break there for my full-time gig, but I'm back in the saddle. Going to be back here covering y'all with some analysis on some college sports, some pro sports. And I'm also going to have a lot of talks, as I always say, talks over takes with some really good sources, some really good people in and around the Terre Haute area, the Midwest. A lot of different coaches and players will be coming through here and coming to your living room and wherever you consume your podcast work. I just want to say thank you all for supporting me in this endeavor, and let's go ahead and keep it rolling. So up and running for episode 17, we got a dandy for you. We're going to start with some analysis looking at the college football playoff. Is it all that's cracked up to be? Are people kind of overreacting with the, people don't belong in the playoff based off the first round of games? This podcast is being taped around 6 Eastern here on Saturday. So right now at halftime, you have the Texas Longhorns leading Clemson 28-10. You had Penn State pouring it on SMU earlier. And then yesterday you had Notre Dame taking it to Indiana. And then later tonight you will have Tennessee heading to the Shoe to play Ohio State. Before I go into that, I also want to outline some college basketball stuff we'll be getting into. We're looking at some teams that I've been watching here in the Midwest area region is kind of what I've been focused on the last couple of weeks. And then at the end, we're going to have a one-on-one with Jared Howard. He was a longtime coach at the high school level here in Southwest Indiana. He's got a couple kids who are playing D1 baseball right now. And then, to be determined, a little sneak peek, we'll give you kind of a wrap-up of his high school stint, which was 24 years, and then look forward to kind of what he's got for next steps potentially after making that high school retirement. So let's go. So first, I want to get off into the college football playoff. I'm going to actually go over the draw. I'm a little bit behind on this, but we're going to look at the 12 teams that made the bracket last week and how 2 weeks ago, and how that kind of is going to play out in terms of just really who was worthy. Did the committee get it right? What does the committee look like, considering this is the first time that they've done 12 teams in the playoff? It's all very fresh and very new. I do think after kind of my initial reaction to kind of this experimental first year deal for the college football playoff, I'm just kind of happy that college basketball is so far along in their selection of the field of 68. To me, it's been a staple in my household to watch college basketball, and people gripe about, a couple of teams here or there to get into that bracket at the end of the year, but just the overall event that's held there in March and how it rolls out and what it looks like, I'm happy that there's some clarity over how it's done. And don't get me wrong, that's what you get kind of when you have this tournament, this national tournament around for so long. It's going to create some consistency and some context and some clarity over what teams make it and why. So I like it. I really do like the format of March Madness. I want to say that, and I hope they don't change it. There's rumors, there's mumblings of potentially expanding the field or keeping it for only the big guys to go to. Don't touch it. Leave it where it's at least for a couple more years. Can we get some consistency where we leave these tournaments kind of the same? I remember growing up, the field was 64. They expanded it, I believe, once and then a second time since I've been following the sport. Let's just kind of leave it where it's at now. We got plenty of teams. And again, because that field's so big, you know that all those teams that feel they were snubbed, well, you had your chance. You played a long enough regular season. You're not probably a title contender or worthy of getting to the big dance. So with that said, let's look at the bracket for the college football playoff. I mean, right off the rip, it's pretty obvious that the seeding isn't really ideal. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Oregon has a pretty tough path as the top seed, the unbeaten team. And then you look at some of the automatic buys based off of winning your conference championship, which the committee is valuing and which was a stipulation that they put in for this year. I think that's probably all going to kind of change. You got, Arizona State as a 4 seed, Boise State as a 3 seed. I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to have to take the college football rankings and just take the top 12 teams, or maybe a couple of exceptions with the group of 5, or with maybe a conference that's down, like this year, for instance, like the Big 12 or the ECC, conferences like that. They're going to be lagging sometimes, but you're going to just have to take the 12 teams that make the playoff. You're going to have to just see them based on their ranking in the playoff. I would hope moving forward. We'll see. I digress. And then when we look at the results now that are kind of coming through, Indiana, I was kind of cautiously optimistic that they could potentially get it done in South Bend in the first ever playoff that took place on Friday here in Indiana. They didn't get it done. They started the game with a pick. I thought that, when you get a chance like that, when you get a pick, you got to turn those into points. Not a field goal, but for me, a touchdown. And after they got that interception, they threw a pick of their own. And then after that, from end zone to end zone, Notre Dame got a rushing touchdown. And pretty much the rest was history from that point. IU was a little overwhelmed. I'm not going to sit here and say that they didn't deserve to get in. I think their body of work warranted a playoff bid. Again, at the latter point of the 12-team playoffs, they got a 10 seed. I don't think that the SEC teams that had 3 losses, take South Carolina, Alabama, Ole Miss, I don't think that just because this result where Notre Dame wins this game pretty comfortably in terms of how they handled the game, I don't think that means that they're going to be, you should have kept IU out of the playoffs. I mean, like I said, those teams had 3 losses. IU had 1. I know the strength of schedule is different for these teams, different strokes, different how it looks, but I can't argue with it. If you lose 3 regular season games, that's pretty much, you don't deserve to be in contention. You don't deserve to compete for a national championship. So that happened. Penn State laid it on SMU pretty heavily. Good for Penn State. They have a really easy path, honestly, to get to the semifinal. Now they're going to travel to Boise. We'll see what happens there. SMU, they had a good body of work. They ended the regular season with 2, or after the ACC championship game, I should say, they ended with 2 losses. Well, now they're going to now they're heading home, and they had a good season. Again, you can't really just like March Madness, you can't really feel like, well, at the end of it though, they didn't deserve to be in the field. It's like, well, they snuck in, they were an 11 seed, and other teams in the country, and the SEC in particular, had their chances. And I'm just not buying this narrative that these teams shouldn't be here. And you've seen that now. People are arguing, well, we've had some blowouts now, 38-10. Penn State won. Did SMU belong? But I saw a tweet from Pat Forty and brought up a good point. In recent years, you had semifinals with blowouts in this playoff, and you've had teams that look like they didn't belong. Notre Dame. There's been other games where teams have been very much overwhelmed, and so it's hard to just say like, well, this is flawed. I don't mind this field. Again, I think that seeding can get some work, but what are you gonna do? This is the first time that you've had a field of 12, and so it's not going to be something that is going to be overly perfect, and it's going to be scrutinized a lot, but I don't have a lot of qualms about how this kind of laid out. And then looking forward to the rest of the postseason, I have even kind of more indicative of kind of what kind of year we had in college football. I think there's three teams, just three teams that are truly title contenders. I think you have Oregon and Georgia. I think those are easily your top two, and then I'll give you Texas as the third team that I think is capable of winning the national championship. So in that regard, this field, like I said, didn't do Oregon a ton of favors. Georgia's going to get Notre Dame. And then Texas has a pretty straightforward path to potentially get a matchup with Oregon in the semifinal. I will say that with how this is all kind of lining up, I was listening to a podcast by Ryan Rosilio. It's a great listen. Go ahead and go grab that podcast. Go listen to that guy. Subscribe to his podcast. Great stuff over there with The Ringer. But he had a podcast where he goes into kind of what it would look like if we did a 4-team playoff, if we did the BCS 1-2 playoff. And this year, it's not like this year is going to be like every typical year, but this year, if you look at it, the championship game would if it was a BCS system would be Oregon, Georgia. Georgia beat Texas in the SEC championship. They've beaten Texas twice. Oregon's unbeaten. I don't think anyone would have any qualms or any argument to be made if the championship, if it was one game, was Oregon and Georgia. So, but that's just that setup. And with what we have now, should be entertaining postseason. But I will say that I think Georgia and Oregon are head and shoulders kind of above everyone else. And like I said, only one more title contender. And so we will kind of see how that unfolds. And it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks as the college football season winds down. So transitioning now to college hoops. There's a couple of teams I've had my eye on. I attended University of Cincinnati, I should say, so take that with a grain of salt what I say about them. But they're now 9-1 this year. They're having a great year. They're ranked in the top 25. They've been playing really well. I got to watch their game last Saturday on TV. Really, really solid matchup against Xavier, the Crosstown Shootout, as they call it, the Skyline Chili Crosstown Shootout. Big game. A couple of schools separated by only a couple of miles there in Cincinnati. Two schools that just hate each other. They hate each other. It's a big time rivalry. And Wes Miller, who is in the early stages of coaching the Cincinnati Bearcats, he is in his, I believe, 4th season with the Cats. He's been there since, if you look at it, he has been in the Queen City since 2021. And this was his first time knocking off Xavier. First time getting a win in the shootout, and that means a lot to the fans there in that area. So that was a big win. They got it done 68-65. Shout out to Ryan Conwell. He had a late 4-point play for Xavier that tried to bring them back, but they lost by one possession there. He's having a good year. The former Indiana State southpaw, smooth operator, finisher, who helped the Indiana State have a really banner year last year. And then they had a game this past Friday. The Bearcats, they knocked off Dayton, who's number 22 in the nation. Really quality win, another really quality win. And so now the Bearcats, they've beaten Georgia Tech, who I haven't been able to see play, but they've beaten Georgia Tech and Xavier and Dayton. So they're just racking up some big wins, especially there against a couple in-state rivals. And they got a lot of pieces back, a lot of strong competitors. Last year's team was kind of a year away from a big leap if they could keep a lot of guys on board. They lost to the Sycamores there in, I believe it was the quarterfinals of the NIT, if I'm getting that right. And that was inside of Holman Center in front of a sold-out crowd. The Sycamores got it done. But yeah, you have a lot a lot of faces that were returning for the Bearcats. It gave them a lot of optimism. They still haven't been back to the big dance since Mick Cronin left. That was back in 2018. He's now with UCLA. But guys like Jizzle James, and then you have some additions like Dylan Mitchell, who's playing really well. Seamus is playing really well. Aziz, they've got a lot of length, a lot of size. They're built like a Big 12 team. They finally got that breakthrough in getting into that conference in recent years. Something that was long overdue, something that they had been waiting on for a while. And then also, for the Missouri Valley fans out there, Connor Hickman is also on the team. He's a rotation player in his final year. He's coming over from Bradley. He's been coming off the bench, sixth, seventh man in that rotation, and giving them some big minutes. And I've got a lot of expectations for the Bearcats. I think they'll be back dancing again this March. And so far, so good, off to a really solid start in that game against Xavier in particular. They didn't shoot the ball well, but it was a gritty win. They got it done. They pulled it out in front of a lot of big names there that used to play in Fifth Third Arena. Kenyon Martin, Steve Logan, a lot of big guys in the house for that one from the Bearcats. And then, I mentioned Dayton. I got to see them play, got to watch them play. They on TV. They played UNLV on Tuesday. They got that done. It was a 1-point win. That was a pretty entertaining game. Felt like it was a game that Dayton had pretty much in control, but then UNLV snuck up there at the end and got the lead. And then ultimately, you had a late game winner from around the basket from Malachi Smith that got the job done for the Flyers. They're looking prime time Atlantic 10 league Bears. They're looking like the league favorite there in the Atlantic 10. In a recent Joey Brackett's field of 68 that I looked at, they were projected to be a 7 seed. And right now the Atlantic 10 is looking to be a one bid league potentially, but we'll see if that comes to fruition. But Dayton's playing really well, and they've had a really tough schedule when you look at who they've played. They lost by 2 to North Carolina. That was in Maui. So at the time, North Carolina was ranked 12th. They lost by 5 to number 5 Iowa State as well in Maui. And in the third game, they were able to knock off number 2 UConn by 18 points, 85-67. And then about 2 weeks later, they came home. They hosted Marquette, who came in at number 6, and they beat them 71-63. So really, really playing strong. They just had a tight game there with the Bearcats at Heritage Bank Center in downtown Cincinnati, the 5-1-3, and didn't get it done, but they're playing really solid, and now they'll head into the Atlantic 10 play with really, they've at 10-3, they've really built up their resume, and they're going to be likely dancing again this March, and if they can keep kind of to the start that they've had, they'll have a decent seed there for March Madness. And then one more team that I've been keeping an eye on is the St. Louis Billikens. That's a squad that has not been kind of living up to the billing that they had coming into the year. Of course, Indiana State's former Indiana State coach Josh Schertz is there. He left Indiana State after 3 years. Now he's having a little bit of a rocky start here with St. Louis. They're 6-5. Haven't really played great. I've been able to catch a couple of their games on TV, and they haven't been showcased to be like a consistent effort yet there. Again, I think it's telling that even in college basketball now with the transfer portal and where things go and who you bring in and who's coming over from like who we brought over from Indiana State, Robbie Avila, and then Isaiah Swope. Robbie got hurt, by the way, in the first game when they lost to Santa Clara there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But I think it's telling that no matter who you're bringing in and who you can recruit and even though it's kind of, you feel like it would be a plug and play. You kind of would implement the same offense or have the same kind of looks and sets. But even in today's college basketball, there is a learning curve. There is a rebuilding phase that these teams have to go through. You can't just kind of start it up, ignite it, and be raring to go like it's going to be seamless. There are going to be growing pains. They got rocked pretty hard by Wichita State and Kansas City, and then a lot of wins over some non D1. There's been some non D1 teams they've beaten. There's been some smaller schools they've beaten. They lost at San Francisco by 17. And then the last two games were probably their most disappointing results of the year. At Illinois State, they fell behind by a lot. I saw that game on ESPN Plus, and didn't look like they were kind of in mid-season form or getting ready for the conference season. Robbie is back. He had a bad ankle there to start the year in the first game. They were trailing by 20 plus against in normal at Illinois State, came back, and then ultimately that ran out of gas at the end. They lost 81-77 to the Redbirds. Maybe the Redbirds have Josh Shirt's number, Robbie's number, Isaiah Swope's number, but I think it's just a matter of a bit of a rebuilding right now. And this, like I said, it's got to be kind of a little bit of a head scratcher that they're just not playing better. And I think it's worth noting too that a lot of Indiana State had last year with Shirts, Swope, Avila, Jason Kent, Ryan Conwell, Xavier Bledson, he wouldn't have been coming back, but they would have had their first five coming back. Julian, Larry, if they would all decide to come back and coach Shirts. Now, you don't know that. You don't know if Coach Shirts had come back that all five starters are going to elect to stay. But just when you frame it that way, when you frame that you have those five in Shirts this year, if you would have had that in Terre Haute, I do think they're top 25 team. I think they're elite. I think they're playing well. I think they would have had a good chance to get back to the tournament, have it make some noise. But that's all for naught. You can't live in a what-if world. But it is interesting because I feel like a lot of those guys might not get back the opportunity you might have had if you'd stayed at Indiana State. For instance, Isaiah Swope, this will be his last year, and he's here at St. Louis, and they're middling, they're struggling. You have to see what Julian Larry and Jason Kent end up having at Texas, what Ryan Conwell has at Xavier. But not all these guys, some of these guys, it's their last year. Jason Kent, Julian Larry, Isaiah Swope, and you could potentially make a really viable case that if they had stayed in Terre Haute and stuck it out, you had one more year where they ran it back. It's a completely different story and potentially maybe even a better senior year for those guys. But I get it. I get why they left, and I get that they moved on to bigger programs and what they were looking at. But it's just kind of interesting to kind of look back on at what could have been for one more year. And then, the Billikens are coming off a loss to Wofford at home, 74-71. Chaifetz Arena, they fell. And so it's kind of dire right now there in Sault. I plan on trying to get out to see them play Dayton at the end of the month in January and January 31st. Hopefully get a good look at those squads and kind of where they're at kind of late in the A10 season. So that's all I got for college hoops. Like I said, keep an eye on some of these squads. Got some really good basketball being played. The Flyers, the Bearcats, and around. And Indiana State, Sycamores update. They are 2-0 in the Missouri Valley. Shout out to them. And Coach Matthew Graves is getting done. Hasn't lost a game yet as in the Valley, as in charge of the Sycamores. They'll have a lot to play for moving forward. And I know Bradley and Drake have had really good starts to the year as well. Drake won a tournament. They were able to knock off Vanderbilt at that event. And so we'll see how the Valley shapes up. But right now, Sycamores have knocked off Missouri State, on the road, and then they beat Murray State at home. So we'll see. We'll see kind of how the team in town kind of continues to build here, and definitely a rebuilding year after everything they lost, and with a new coach for this season. Today we got a guest. He's a guy that I've known for a minute. He's a friend of mine. He was a coach that I covered when I was doing the high school prep scene in DuBois County in Southwest Indiana. Um, he coached 24 seasons, 379 wins, which is top 20 all time in Indiana as of this year. He did all those at Forest Park High School in Ferdinand, Indiana. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Jared Howard here with us today. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, man. It's good to be with you again.
Great to see you. Um, I want to start with this. So it's the Christmas season. You just got done with your last season this past spring. So I'm sure it's marinated a little bit. The fact that you wanted to call it quits after more than 2 decades in coaching baseball in Indiana. What can you tell me? I know you mentioned a little bit about the service aspects of wanting to do that with kids, and you've done that for so long. What can you tell me is maybe a little bit different right now this Christmas season being a retired baseball coach?
Well, I don't know. What I'm doing right now is I'm pouring into my kids. So, in my own family. So, I played college baseball at Oakland City University, and then I coached there for 2 years, and then jumped right in and as the head coach at Forest Park at an early age, and then spent a lot of time there. So, um, you go from all I've ever known is coaching, whether it's coaching baseball or and in the last 10 years or so, I've coached basketball in the wintertime. So I think the biggest transition for me is just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my time to serve the people that I need to serve. One thing that we do as coaches, we pour into the kids that are in our programs and help them any way that we can, whether it's on the field, off the field, getting them into colleges, helping them get jobs, trying to stay in touch with them after they graduate. I've had the opportunity. I've married a couple of them. I've been in their weddings. So you have all those special relationships, and then it's gone, right? You don't see them every day. So just trying to be a better dad, be a better husband, trying to reconnect with older guys. They gave me a big surprise into the coaching party, and I got to reconnect with a lot of older guys that are around now. So it's been an adjustment, but I've loved it just because I have time to go see my kids play, and I missed a lot of time with them. So trying to catch back up, I guess, for now.
Coach, as I mentioned, almost 400 wins in your 24 years of doing this. Um, that's a lot of wins. So a lot of memories, a lot of moments, a lot of preparing for it, a lot of postseasons. What can you tell me? There's got to be a couple wins, especially like I said, you've had some time to think about it that you've had over your 24 years at Forest Park, the Rangers that stands out.
Well, I think it was the first and the last sectionals that we won. The first one was our second year here. I didn't have kids. So, Natalie and I were just dating. So, uh, I was a young coach, extremely hard on players, demanded a lot. We started 7 or 8 sophomores that year. Were real young. Nobody really expected anything out of us. I think we lost. I think we were 2-9 or something like that to start the season.
Mhm.
End up winning like 17 straight games and won a sectional for the first time. And I think they had been like 20 or 21 years before they'd won that.
Mhm.
And that at that time, you can do things with your team that you can't do now. I think they had they had fire trucks. I think we were on top of the fire trucks, and they had a guy here in town named Dave Hosputter. He had a big long, like trying to describe it. It would be like a train of like half barrels that he cut out, like you would pull with a lawnmower.
Wow.
So we got that out. They were taking that through town. I'll never forget that. That was, and I think it was because we just didn't expect it, So it was, we were young,
Hmm.
and I thought, man, this is going to be easy to do. And then we went through a long dry spell of had great teams and just were kind of snake bit. We had 4 seasons there where we won 100 games in 4 years, which in high school baseball is a big deal, especially when you're a 2A school playing the big boys like we do. And but we would run into a good arm in sectional. Some of them, we had a guy from Mater Dei. He ended up pitching the bigs, and um, they beat us. And then South Spencer had some really good teams. I think at that time we had like 3 or 4 years where the number one, well, there were 3 or 4 teams ranked in the top 10 in the state, all from our sectional.
Hmm.
So it was a grind. And then the second big one was when a couple years ago we won it with the boys. Drew was a senior, Reed was a sophomore. Um, I kind of coached those guys and their teammates in the summer during like all Little League All Stars and some travel ball. So I was real close with those kids on that team. It was my two, but man, the team roster was full of guys that had spent the night at the house, and we had backyard barbecues, and I was close with their families. So it was a different kind of feeling, just because it was a family deal then, right? And something that I will never forget. Um, Won the first game of a regional, then got beat in the evening there. So those are the two big wins or championships, I guess, that I can look back and that I remember the most. That when you coach that as long as I did, to be honest with you, a lot of stuff runs into each other. you know, uh, but the things that I can remember the most are I'll be honest with you, the wins were great and the championships were great. But Marion Kyle Schwinghammer, who played for me, played at University of Evansville. He's our neighbor. Being able to officiate his wedding, being in Jeff Durloff and Nate Leakin, two players of mine, being in their weddings. To be
Hmm.
honest, those highlights may be as big as the sectionals because it's just important relationships that you have that you're never going to give up. And I guess when I'm getting older and I realized that it was a grind to win games.
Hmm.
Um, but man, the relationships that you get out of all those the players that I've had, I appreciate that amount no more now than the wins, even to be honest with you. So the wins and losses all run together. To be honest with you, I've never been a stat guy. I don't even know when the most wins we had in a season.
Hmm.
Uh, I just know at the end of the year, those kids graduate. You hope to stay connected to them, and the relationships that I have are more important than those wins.
You played at Oakland City. You also
Mhm.
were assistant at Oakland City, and then more than 2 decades of coaching at Forest Park. What can you tell me is kind of the biggest shift or one of the glaring shifts that's happened in like prep and college baseball just over your time of being in the sport?
Well, college baseball is I'm learning more about it now since I have two that are in it, which we can maybe get to that after a while. That's that's changing big time. Um, High school baseball really hasn't changed much. It's been the same. I feel like what has happened at Forest Park, luckily, we still have kids that play multiple sports. Um, when I started, a lot of the players I had, they played 2 or 3 sports, and didn't there was no summer travel ball. It was Legion baseball in the summer, so everybody kind of stayed around local and played. And then you got to see the last 10 years, and even our opponents. Travel ball became a big deal, and that was kind of the biggest change I think that's happened to high school baseball is. Rather than our best athletes in the school playing 2 or 3 sports, they're starting to pick one or two, and then at times you don't have your best athletes on the field because they've chosen to play spring AU basketball or whatever, right? So most of the times our kids, they stuck with it and played. I would say the biggest change for me personally is the travel ball scene. So both of our boys Drew played with a couple of really good teams, a team Ironmen, and they were out of Louisville. Um, when he was in high school, and they travel, we would go to Georgia and Alabama and play in big tournaments, very very competitive. Uh, I think off of his team, and I helped coach those guys in the summer. So off of his team, there are five. There's a kid playing at Louisville, a kid playing at Bellarmine, Kentucky Wesleyan.
Hmm.
I'm missing some. I think this fall, this is what you do when you get bored. You get up at 4:35 in the morning, and start thinking about things, Hunter. So I think there's 38 players right now playing Division I baseball that's played for me at Forest Park or that I've coached in the summer.
Oh,
So, and they're just all over the place. And a lot of them, most of them, to be honest with you, were travel baseball guys. Like Reed, when he played, his team was ranked nationally.
yeah,
Midwest Canes, they traveled to Arizona, Florida,
yeah,
Georgia, Alabama. I mean, they've been North Carolina. They've been all over the place. And every player on that team, with the exception of one, is playing Division I baseball right now.
right.
So to me, that's been the biggest change. The kids are the kids. We've had great. When I talk to other coaches, they would tell you that maybe parents have changed. Kids are kids. Um, when people say, "Well, the kids have changed," and I said, "Well, the kids really haven't changed. To me, the parents have probably changed, and that affects the kids, right?"
Yep.
But um, it's baseball, so
As you mentioned, so Reed's your youngest, Reed Howard. He is a freshman at Western Kentucky. And then his older brother, Drew Howard, is going to be a junior this upcoming season at Evansville for the Evansville baseball program. Shout out to the Purple Aces.
right.
Last year, they beat the national champion, Tennessee, in the best of three. They beat them in one game. They didn't take the series, but they beat them in one game. And Tennessee actually they won 82% of their games overall. They went 10-2 in the postseason on their way to before polishing off that College World Series championship. And like I said, one of those two losses in the postseason came to UE, and that was in Knoxville, so pretty hostile territory to just go get a win there in SEC country against the national champ. Um, Coach, what can you tell me about that super regional Evansville getting that win and kind of the buzz that was around the program for that run?
Well, this it's my first time I've been in baseball, and I've coached in baseball, spent some time scouting. I've never really been in, and I've been to the College World Series, I think 3 or 4 times. It's different when it's your kid. So, we're having a graduation party for Reed. At the same time, Indiana State and U of E are playing for the MVC championship. So we leave the grad party, run down there to Evansville. It's packed house. Um, watch the game. U of E wins. So there's a celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a real quick turnaround. You only they do the seating the next day.
Mm-hmm.
They send us to East Carolina. So we're loading up, trying to make plans and we run to East Carolina. And U of E had a bunch of seniors last year that were just tremendous leaders and baseball players, great young men. Coach Carroll did a wonderful job with him, his staff. It was just amazing to see everybody come together. So we run down, not really knowing what we're getting into. I've never really heard of East Carolina. That's my fault. I mean, I've heard of them. You watch them on TV, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, the rowdiest bunch of fans I have ever seen in my life. They gave us, I think we had 200 tickets, and there were 6,000 there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was when we played them, it was packed. I mean, so it was. They had a lot of nice folks there. They had some very rowdy folks there. You can imagine. Uh, but U of E come out on top and went down there and battled and won. And it was just so we left there thinking, oh my gosh, now we're going to the super regionals.
Mm-hmm.
So they send us to Knoxville, and same, a different kind of atmosphere, right? It was packed, and they were rowdy, and but they had a ton of respect for us. It was, we were the underdog, and we had when we were walking out the day we beat them, they're like, "You guys deserve to win. We're pulling. Of course, we want our team to win,
Mm-hmm.
but U of E's got 2,000 2,500, 3,000 students in their college, and
Oh,
you know what Tennessee's like, right?
yeah.
So it was a testament to the coaches and the players of how they stepped up and got it done. It was an unbelievable experience going into the final game of the Super Regionals, thinking if we win this game, we're going to the College World Series. You know, and on national television, it was just an awesome experience. One of the best experiences I've ever had in baseball. Like I said, different when I'm in the stands. I've always been the dugout.
Hmm.
So now I'm sitting in the stands, just sit back and watching, and special things happened with a lot of special kids there that weekend. So it was a lot of fun.
And I got to come to your house at one point when I was on the beat there in DuBois County. And honestly, I don't think I can recall going to another parent's house, coach's house, player's house, and doing high school. I did high school sports for 5, 6 years. I don't think I ever did that. Can't come to my mind. But the reason I bring that up is it felt like you guys had a really good household for them to just learn and develop character, develop everything you needed to just keep playing and keep developing the mindset and the physical attributes to be successful in high school and beyond that. Um, I guess my question is how early? So leading into this, like how early is too early to give? So I got a little one now. His name's Malachi. He's 1 year. He's turning one in January. How early is too early to get your son a basketball or a baseball to get just to give him one and make sure it's in their hand?
Oh, it's never too early, man. We laugh about it now because we lived in Christmas Lake Village, and Drew was born, and he had a big red wiffle ball bat. Everybody knows what that is, right? You get
Hmm.
those big red wiffle ball bats, and we had wiffle balls. And I would be asleep on the couch on the weekend, and he was able to walk. He was in diapers, but he would able to walk in that. Then he would slap me on top of the head with that thing, waking me up, right? So he was in diapers, and I kid you not, he was in diapers. I would have wiffle balls inside the house, throwing him balls, and he was hitting them, right? And then we came and we moved to Ferdinand, and he was, I don't know, I'm guessing he was under 5 years of age, right? And Reed was a year and a half younger than him. And the basement was all open, which is where I'm at now. The basement was all open, and we would literally sit down here on a bucket with wiffle balls, and they would just hit wiffle ball after wiffle ball, right? So looking back now, people ask me that, like, what should I do? And I'm like, just put the ball and bat in their hand, whatever they do, just let them do it, right? And then they figure stuff out. It cracks me up. I probably was a little guilty of this. I've got former players that call and they're like, "Can you come and help me with my son's swing?" And I'm like, "Well, first, how old is he? You know?" Well, he's 6, or something like. Let's wait a few years. If he's just swinging a bat, that's all they needs to be doing right now. We don't need to be giving hitting lessons when they're 5 and 6, right?
Yeah.
Never too early. Get that ball in their hand, right? Get a variety of balls and let them throw them around. As long as your wife doesn't care, Natalie,
Yeah.
she never cared if there were stuff on the walls that
Mhm.
didn't matter, right? Because they were getting knocked off,
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, it's
Let
never
the boys play, right? Just let the boys
let
play. Let the
let
boys.
them play. The best story I have of I don't know how much time you have, and I may be talking too much. I apologize if I am, but
We got time.
we're huh?
We got time.
All right. So I'm in the backyard. We have a back lot, and the boys. I'm not like a picture of health, as you know, Hunter, but the both boys were little, and I had my shirt off, and I was out back, and I'm sitting on a bucket, and we play pitcher's hand, and basically what that means. If I get the ball before he gets to first base, he's out,
Mhm.
right? And the boys, we played wiffle ball every day. There were when it was warm enough to play outside, either I was throwing to them with pitcher's hand, or there was a neighborhood game going on, which, by the way, is what's not going on right now in neighborhoods, which is wrong. Right? There's just kids not outside playing.
Yeah.
My kids, they learn how to play baseball in the backyard.
Yep.
They learn how to play basketball on a 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 with their buddies.
Hmm.
Outside, by the way. So uh I don't have there's a fly ball hit, Reed's in the outfield. He misses it, drops it. Drew goes to second to take two on him. He throws it and tries to hit him. I don't see the ball hit him, so I'm calling him safe. Drew rounds it. There's a, you know how this is. They circle away. Now Reed's mad at me. I'm talking about Reed's probably, I'm going to say Reed's 7 and Drew's 9. And so I got my shirt off. Well, I'm going, and so Reed's like he was out, and I'm like, no, if you would have caught the ball, he would have been out. But since you dropped the ball, you tried to throw it at him and missed him, then he's safe. It's a home run. You need to get over it. And so I'm turning around and I'm grabbing a wiffle ball and I'm getting ready to throw Drew the next pitch, and I feel a burning sensation in the middle of my back. Reed had snuck up behind me, was mad at me, and threw the ball as hard as he could.
Yep.
With that, you know, those wiffle balls, they sting.
That's the worst. That's a bad feeling.
So now I'm looking for a ball, and now I'm chasing him through the backyard, and I crow hop and I throw it and hit him in the back. So then he drops down. He's crying because I've thrown the ball. I'm an adult, you know. I'm 40 years old, chasing my kid around, throwing balls at him. And I look over, and there's like an 80-year-old lady on the front porch reading her newspaper, watching this whole deal go down. Right,
Front row seats.
And I said, boys, let's load everything up. Let's go inside. And I walk in, and Natalie goes, what are you guys doing? I said, well, Child Protective Services is going to show up here any day because this old lady behind us is going to turn me in because I was just running around chasing my kid with a wiffle ball in the backyard. But
Oh man.
no, that's those times when you're outside, your best days are ahead of you, brother, because it's people always say it goes fast. Man, it does. When you're in the middle of it, it doesn't go fast. It's like, man, I just want to get through this, right? And then you look back now, and I'm like, I would go back. Now that we've talked about it, I would go back right now and do it all over again right now. And I would do things different, you know. So,
Coach, you couldn't have envisioned being at Oakland City and then going to Forest Park for almost a quarter of a century. You couldn't have pictured doing that long, one spot, and doing high school baseball that long. So, what can you tell me is maybe what kept you there so long? What was it?
well, that's God's plan, right? I go to Oakland City. Both of us are from McLean County, Kentucky, my wife and I. I go to Oakland City, never been there before. Go and get I'm on a scholarship, play there, stay there and coach. The whole time I wanted to go back to Kentucky, or I wanted to coach college.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened was I did my student teaching at Heritage Hills, which I had never really heard of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I got student teacher of the year, and so I was in an award ceremony, and Lee Bagley, who's the principal at the elementary school here at Ferdinand, his wife was getting an award. So he comes up to me that night. He's like, "Hey, we got a business teaching job open at Forest Park. Would you be interested in coming up there?" And I'm like, "Well, here's my business card," because I was assistant coach at that time. They have them call me. Well, they call me and they interview me. And the whole time I'm thinking, I hope I don't get this job because I really want to coach college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what happens right before school starts? They call me and offer me the job. So now I'm living in the dorm as a dorm director, athletic dorm, not making any money, but they're paying for me to go back and get my master's degree and coach in Oakland City. So I took this job here and I taught and drove back and forth for 2 years, a year and a half. So I was an assistant baseball coach, going through my master's to finish it up so I could teach in college. All you needed at that time was a master's in business. So I've been a business adjunct instructor. But once I came to Forest Park, I did that for 1 year. The coach had been here, Jim Maley, for a long time. He asked me, you know, he goes, I really don't, he goes, I'm had enough. Will you come coach? And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I just want to stay coaching college. But then I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And I want to stay a year or two, and then I'll go back and coach college, or I'll go back to Kentucky, you know, where all our family was from. And one thing, you know how it is, Hunter. It's just it's for this place where I've been able to coach and teach, and we've moved to this community where a part of it is a special place. It's not like this anywhere else. And they've just supported me through the years. You know, you can't coach for 24 years unless you have an AD that's going to support you. Now we won a bunch of games, which makes it easier. but Doug Loudon is our athletic director, and then Tony Hossenar come at my last year. But our administration through the years, they just let me coach.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you what saved me was my wife. Natalie is we had a custodian at the high school. She's the librarian at the high school. She said that Natalie was the librarian and she was married to the barbarian, right? So I was the one always the hardliner, the hard nosed coach
Oh,
that's
I
getting
love
that.
it.
Yeah, I'm the one that's getting after everybody all the time. She's the one coming behind me, softening everybody back up. And really, that really was going on. If I was too hard on the guys, or if she felt like somebody needed to be called, or we need to have a meal for the team, or all those little things that coaches really, I'm worried about coaching.
Yep.
And she was able to come behind and go, I think we need to have a meal for everybody at our house this weekend, And so I wouldn't have done it without her. So I think every good coach has those people in their lives, whether it's their wife, girlfriend, close friend, whatever, that help them do that. That's what she was for us.
My last question, I'll get you out of here on is is this your final time coaching?
I don't know. I've got I want to watch both the boys play, and Bree's playing softball, and I want to enjoy watching them play. I think what's going to end up happening, I'll probably get back into coaching at some point. But I'm going to take these next 3 or 4 years off and watch my kids play, and then 4 years from now I'll be 55, which is retirement age for teachers, where I can draw a pension. I've got some friends that are coaching in college right now. If I can draw a retirement, I can go back be a volunteer assistant or something like that, and help those guys out. I'll end up coaching again. I'm not sure I'll coach in high school. I'll either be in scouting or coaching of some kind. I don't miss it because I've got stuff to do every Tuesday. I know that this spring, every Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm watching college baseball somewhere, right? And then Bree's going to be in there somewhere. I got to watch her, so I'm going to be busy for the next 4 years. But after that, if a good opportunity comes open, then I may take it. We'll see. Who knows? I hope I'm alive 4 years from now. That's what I hope.
That's right. Again, folks, we got Jared Howard with us here today. He is former longtime coach with the Forest Park Rangers baseball team. And there you have it. He's taking a break to be continued to know what the next step is, if there is a next step for him. Jared, it's been great to have you. It's great that you ended your time there. Like I said, top 20 all time in the state of Indiana for wins as a manager in baseball. And yeah, it's meant a lot that you took the time to talk with me today.
I appreciate you, Hunter. You keep doing great things, my brother.
So that is all I have for you today in episode 17. Go ahead and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Follow us on social media, and we will have a new episode coming up very soon. And I will be interviewing a very well-known player here who came and played for the Sycamores.